What up real people? Kita mau memperkenalkan Real Indo Me, a group of open-minded real Indonesians yang bakalan ngebahas topik-topik yang penting di sekitar kita. Come and listen to our real talk. You'll get to meet Indomie Cooper, Djanggo, Giring, Sambal Mata, and me, Mak Spesial yang artinya spesifik topik sosial. Time to speak up folks, we trust that you all are smart Indonesians wherever you are in this world. Platform ini adalah safe space di mana kita bisa sharing our opinion and we can accept our differences. We will not tolerate hate, bullying, or shaming in any form. We believe in freedom of speech for everyone. We support equality and justice for all. We won't hold back, so listen at your own risk. We're gonna be as real as it can be. Are you ready? Let's get real. This is Real Indo Me.
Welcome to Real Indo Me, session 2. We're still talking about Black Lives Matters. Me as Sambal Mata, who are based in Indonesia. Probably you guys are curious why we're still talking about this, but the concern is because Black Lives Matters is not a trend; it's people's life. So today we're gonna interview a few Indonesian who has a Black families. I'll just give how Indonesian are really seeing how Black Lives Matters in our point of view here, who are far from the States. Yeah, for us, I think it becomes quite a debate that we saw in so many of the social justice issues or something that happened in the news. Social justice issues sometimes it just stays in the newsreel for just a short period of time and suddenly everybody forgot about it. It happens all around the world. Indonesia has this record of having amnesia about what's going on in its own history. And today, we're gonna meet all these women for whom it will never be over. Black Lives Matters because they have their own Black family also mixed with Indonesian. So we're gonna hear from them like how they have taken this movement for life. It's a life commitment. We have Indomie Giring with Oxtail, and then we have Indomie Mak Spesial and Didi, and also we have Indomie Djanggo with Miles. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Okay. So I'll start the questions for you guys. How long have you been with your Black partner?
We've been together. Oh geez, 9 years, 10 years.
9 to 10 years.
You want to tell us a little bit, just short, how you guys meet and stuff? Yeah.
So we met at the martial arts class. So and then he was my senior, and I was an orange belt, and he was a brown belt. So he used to teach me a lot of stuff, the kata and everything. And then he was really sweet and kind and also very polite. So I was like, oh my God, this guy is a little bit different. Maybe yes, maybe not. And then he asked me on a date. So it started from there.
That's where it all. How about you, Djanggo? How do you guys and Miles? And how do you guys met?
So we actually met through my friend at school. So
sorry. How long was this? Like
okay. It was so we met in 2012. We met in 2012 when I was in school, and funny story. Actually, our mutual friend who introduced me to him actually kind of liked him. So it was actually a very a rocky start for my friendship with her. But anyway, yeah, it was so I think we just started, we just we started hanging out, and then one thing led to another. But yeah, that was 8 years ago.
Mak Spesial and Didi.
Oh, I guess we're relatively new because we both were in a relationship before. So we met in 2015, so about 5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was this the process in introducing your partner to your family, and what is the response of the Indonesian community? So
The process, it was really smooth. The fact that my family were kind of see that he's different, but they still have their own prejudice. So my mom was like, "Oh my God, he's so big. That's that kind of guy. Are you sure that kind of guy you want for life?" I'm like, "Mom, we just started dating."
yeah.
So yeah, and then but yeah, well, my husband did kind of funny thing. He tried to take my father's heart. And then so we went to Indonesian restaurant. The first time my father met him, we went to Indonesian restaurant, and he saw a big bowl of sambal.
Okay.
And he thought that was what's that, chili?
I thought it was corned beef. So
Okay.
yeah, I thought the samba was corned beef, and I love corned beef and rice. So I took the whole bucket and I put it on my rice. I didn't know how spicy it was. So right now I got snot coming down my nose, and I'm sweating profusely. And her dad is laughing out of control.
Okay.
And then I call him dumbass for that. And I just quiet looking at him like I'm enjoying it that he's suffering.
Oh my God.
But yeah, he tried his part. He tried kind of hard to get my family's approval.
Yeah.
But there are times when my parents keep questioning, like, are you sure with this guy? It's like, yes, I'm pretty sure now. We get to kids, we get to children. We're fine.
Yeah. How's like the other Indonesian, like Indonesian community around you, or family, like bigger family? Like how do they respond?
Yeah.
I usually get a lot of stares. One time we went to a basketball event when we were dating. And I just came off of work, so I have a shirt and a tie on. I'm pregnant. She's about 6 months pregnant, and we were getting stared at pretty well. Some people thought I was her security guard or like her bodyguard.
Oh my God.
Dad, good old dad.
Yeah, it was a premier's premier's event.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we were like, okay, so Daniel stole a lot of attention that day.
Okay. Yeah, that is very similar what we experienced back home. I mean, I have a darker father also. Every time he took my school reports, people think he's my driver. So yeah, it is always quite this attitude that we had to admit it's been happening in our society. So how are things at your end, Djanggo?
For us, it was so when I introduced him, honestly, my parents for them it was either you're dating an Indonesian or anyone, any other foreign person. It could be another Asian person or American. It really didn't matter. So it was a surprise that I was dating an American, just because they also knew that my type was always Indonesian, so they were surprised by that. But then a couple months into me dating Miles here, I guess they realized that it was getting serious. So my mom, she's always the type who always tries to like keep me aware, kind of like preemptively, to keep me aware, but also to anticipate things. Basically she doesn't want me to be surprised or to be caught off guard by things. So she would always, in the beginning, she would tell me like, look, if people, how it is in Indonesia, some people might make some, negative remarks or try to question you or whatever. You just have to be prepared and not act defensive or be basically be confrontational with people when they make those remarks. You just have to understand that, in Indonesia is different. So I get where she was coming from with that. And to me, I didn't find it to be racist, because honestly, my mom actually dated a black guy too when she was, because she actually she worked in the state that I'm in. And so she actually dated a black guy then, and she got a lot of basically resistance from her family, a lot from her parents. Her and their relationship was actually very serious before, my dad kind of like intercepted that and took her away. But so I think she was trying to prepare me mentally for it, because I think of what she experienced herself. But what I guess looking back, what I kind of wish that, what I wish that she didn't do was the fact that like she told me to basically just stand down. She said like, you're gonna get these kind of remarks from people, just don't fight it, just let it be. That's how people are, and I think, though I understand where she's coming from, I feel like people need to be checked, and as we all know, because we're Indonesians, we know the culture. Indonesians are non-confrontational. So I think that's where she was coming from. But I feel like that's part of the problem, because nobody is speaking out to correct them and to put these people in their place when they make these remarks. It could be as innocent, or, well, to us, it's not innocent, but to them, it could be as innocent as like, oh, like, I don't know, like, they've never said it to me, but, I mean, honestly, I can't think of one right now, but it would be like jokes, jokes about some stereotypes they might have based on movies or, or whatever. But even in those circumstances, I feel like I shouldn't be standing down, but instead I should correct people. So I think it's really just that. But everybody else on my family was fine. So there were no issues with my family on that.
Yeah. How is like the perception of that's family, and so how is like Indonesian community accept your relationship?
The Indonesian community, it's been fine. It's just that, like, I think when I do go back, it's not really so much here, but when we do go back to Indonesia, there would be times where we would hang out with our friends, and I could tell, like, either, okay, one fun example, one time we went and did karaoke, and so it was like a huge group of people, and of course, some of these people, some of my friends, would play like rap music, right? So they play rap songs, and of course, some of these rap songs contain some, language that I was surprised they didn't have like the radio version at the karaoke, but so like they kind of like looked awkwardly at each other and like they laughed, and then the one who was like singing refused to say, certain words, because Miles was there. But others would like jokingly tell her like, oh, come on, you always say that every time you always say that word whenever we sing these songs. So it'd be things like that. It would be all jokes, but that these jokes, they're not so innocent because they're built on ignorant stereotypes. So I still find them offensive. But it's nothing where they tell me that it's, like, oh, like they never ask me, why would I be in a relationship with somebody who's Black because, X, Y, and Z?
Well, my situation is a little bit different because before I dated Diddy, I actually was already dating, I actually was married to another Black man, right? So I was mostly here in the US at that time. And when I was still married to that person, I was living in Delaware. So my interaction with the Indonesian community wasn't that much. I mean, there were like very few Indonesian people in Delaware, and then I got divorced and everything, and then I moved to Philly, and then I met Diddy. I think maybe because I was already active in the community, people don't really say things to my face, but the ones that I hear would be making comments to Black people in general, not to me, not to specifically to my husband right now, but they'll say things like, well, here's the thing. Indonesian and South Philadelphia live side by side with the Black community and like with other immigrant communities. So it's not like a really, I would say like lower middle class to like poor area in South Philly. So then, you know, like there's already other issues there, right? So Indonesians would say things like this, like, oh, don't live in the area where Black, you know, like where Black people live, because, you know, there's a lot of crime, and then there's a lot of robberies and things like that. So I would make comments like, what do you mean? Like that would happen in any bad areas. And why do you say that about Black people? Because my husband is Black. And then they'll say something like, well, not like your husband's Black. You know, like in Indonesian would be like, yeah, bukan kayak orang hitam kayak suami lo gitu loh. But like, you know what I mean? Orang-orang hitam yang nggak berpendidikan. You know, like things like that, right? So as far as my family, because my family, the funny thing was my dad actually was a part of like this missionary team when he was very young, and the first country he ever visited outside of Indonesia was Ethiopia. So I think he was a little bit more open-minded, right? And then like we actually have we actually have like Martin Luther King's poster in our house, the I Have a Dream. So for my family, it was you know, it's nothing. I mean, you know, my family love hip hop. My family loves listening to like, what do you call it? Like soul music, blues, and things, jazz, things like that. So you know, like it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different towards us personally.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just wrap it up a little bit because I think this is what people really, both in Indonesian communities in the US and also us back home, we need to hear all of this, because I think especially on the internet there is so many I've been seeing like during the BLM, there's so many ignorant comments, and like they don't realize, because they never heard it from the real people, you know. Like stories like this are very important for people to learn, to educate themselves about how, and actually how they had to kind of change their attitude. And also I think it's personal stories. They I think like, because Indonesian, if I think for us, the distance and also the tendencies of Indonesian as communities, they like to try just to make things light. They very avoidant in heavy conversations that felt disharmony. But that can later, I'll explain a little bit how in our own history it has been systemized like that as well. So going to these issues, so like how has the issue of racism toward your relationship affected you personally? How is that? So Giring, how is that?
It's still difficult, very difficult, because my mom's and my dad will make comments that really hurtful, like
You gotta run away.
oh, he's going to run away, you know, he's going to beat you. Or my mom has tendency of slut shaming me since I was little. So my mom's like, oh, you give everything for that man, including your, you know, including your vagina. And so I'm like, Mom, if he's that kind of type of person, he wouldn't be here until now, because we got 2 children and we've been together for 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And then never once in his life or during my relationship with him that he hit me or he insulted me. He actually never ever once disrespect you. It just, you know, it's their comments when every time I said something that I'm passionate about, which is the civil rights issues, that she kept commenting that I am more black than the black person.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I am the most racist person in the world because I don't like white people. Like, I do like white people. I just do not like when they become racist. Any race that I do not like is when they become racist. You know what I mean? Or my mom started saying, "Oh, you don't like being Indonesian. You're not Indonesian enough because the way you talk. Indonesian do not talk like that." That's, or my mom would say, "Oh, that's just Indonesian joke." Like, no, there's stuff that is not, you're not supposed to say that, period. You're not saying, you don't joke about other people's skin color because that just going to degrade somebody, that person. And I kept telling my mom, like, "Mom, even though my kids are not dark skinned, they are black because, when they find out that the father is black, that's it, Mom. They're black, So I also, teach my kids their privilege of being lighter skins than their own family, the cousins and everything. But I also I'm trying to teach my parents that, no matter what, no matter how light my daughters are going to be, um, or they don't look like typical black women, they will be discriminated because their last name, because their body structures, because they're biracial. So, and then the thing is, I don't know how to teach my children to be a biracial because, like, even though my parents are mixed cultures, but I don't know when it comes to interracial, you know, uh, issues. So, thanks God, I have my husband Oxtail, who's, who who is biracial and went through that, that experience when, both of his sides of family and cultures are actually against him or questioning his identity because he's Puerto Rican and he's also black, but he's the lightest person in the family. So people keep saying like, "Oh, you're not black enough. You're not black," and then the Hispanic side will say, "Oh, you're not Spanish enough because you don't speak Spanish or you don't know anything about Puerto Rican enough." So I don't know that experience, and thanks God I have my husband to teach the experience. So yeah, and also my mom's always compares. Sorry. My
It's
mom
okay.
was compares and jealous every time I try to teach my daughters about black issues, about the heritage of British Virgin Islands heritage, or you know African American heritage. The special on February when we did. So it's funny. On February we have the African American history, and usually the school will give us assignments telling the students and the parents to be involved to make projects about African American history that related to African American history. So last time, this year, was the inventor, the black inventors. And my mom saw that. My mom thought like, why you? And my mom literally said, why is it everything about black? don't you know anything about Indonesian? And I'm like, Mom, this is different. This is African American History Month. It's not like, it's not about Asian right now. The Asian will be the next month. And I understand your point of view that you want the kids to be proud as a Asian culture, to be, as a Asian and Indonesians. But you gotta understand too that she is black. You cannot erase that. You cannot erase. You cannot tell that she's more black, or she's more Indonesian, or she's more Hispanic. You cannot say that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Maria and Oxtail, really, like, I personally think what you guys are doing are very brave things, very courageous, and you're doing it based on love, and how it doesn't differentiate us, and I think really starting it from the families are really important for the next generations, because we I was just in awe and listening the things that you guys has to um really go through and keep on having those conversations with your family, no matter how hard it is, and still educating the kids as well at the same time, so
Yeah,
keep doing that. Yeah, really. Yeah. So
my parents is learning though. They're learning,
yeah,
especially with the Black Lives Matter right now. She's
yeah,
learning. She actually had a conversations with my husband, and I was
yeah,
surprised. But I
yeah,
think that's what it takes, that
yeah,
conversations.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, that is very an important things. So how are things with you, Djanggo? How does racism affect your relationship personally?
I think I want to say it has probably brought us closer together.
Yeah,
So I feel like, obviously, so like we said, right, we've been dating. I mean, we've been together. We've been together for like 8 years now. But so even though I've heard obviously his perspective of everything that he has to go through as a Black person in America, it never really I never really fully understand it. I hear it, and then and then we move on and talk about other things. But it really took what has happened recently for me to really fully understand his side, and his experiences. So I feel like it has brought us closer together, because I feel like I am now hearing more about you know this other side of his that I never had to experience my entire life. So obviously it was really difficult for me to sort of relate and understand what that would feel like. So I had to be educated so much, and it's obviously an ongoing process. But it's definitely something that I want to say, it's something that has made our relationship, I guess, in a way stronger, and helped me to grow more. But at the same time, because now I feel like I'm learning more and more about his experiences, I'm also putting myself in his shoes. When I look at this world, I look at it from a different lens, and it makes me angry. It makes me angry a lot, just with everything. A lot of it is in a good way, but also in a lot of other ways. I've grown very suspicious of so many things. I question so many things that are happening, just different things in this country. And so, but on a personal level, I don't think we have, or at least me, I haven't really experienced anything. Like I said, my parents, my family has been supportive. So I guess I could say, in terms of interracial relationship, I've been lucky in that sense, but it's only been a couple of years. I always have to anticipate things might come our way. But yeah, I think that's what I've experienced.
Okay, so how's things at your end, Mak Spesial and Didi?
Um, I think I'm just gonna echo what Djanggo was saying, that like I think I still do have a lot to learn. So I think experiencing the kind of comments that my community say, because my family don't really say things like that. I feel like they're a little bit more open-minded, or they don't really, like they don't really see us and as in we're just two different people. Maybe, I don't know. I can't say for certain, but I think it makes me a little bit more sensitive to racism, and not just specifically the black community. Did you guys heard me okay? That sounds weird. There was like a little bit of
it's okay.
Yeah. So I think it makes me a little bit more sensitive to that, and then I keep, just like Djanggo, like I keep reading and watching the news and paying a little bit more attention to this, especially when the Black Lives Matter movements just started with Trayvon Martin, because my children who are Black and Asian were growing up, and they're going to be teenagers. So there are things like that I worry about, like what's going to happen when they become teenagers, what's going to happen when they start driving, what's going to happen when they start hanging out with their friends who are not Black. Are they going to get shot too? Are they going to be okay? So I think, like it kind of changed my perception, because, well, honestly, if we're in Indonesia, we kind of live in a bubble until we get here and actually experience all of this, right? We don't know. What we know is everything is pretty cool. Everything is maybe like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and like Diddy.
Okay.
I guess as I like to put, like to make long story short, definitely, like keep educating myself and just see things in a different light.
Yeah. Okay, so if I want to sum up a little bit, I think from the three of you, I think a lot of Indonesian community here, like I think especially with comments, is really like things about biracial, the things about biracial issues. I mean, actually Indonesia is such a melting pot ethnic wise, but like there's things in our own history actually existed, but we never talk about it. How are like actually mixed kids also are like treated, and I really understand you hearing the three of you and how it changed the perspective and how to be actually in the forefront of educating yourself, educating your family, your kids, your surrounding. It kind of falls on your shoulder when nobody teaches at school about these issues. So it is quite a discussion. Like I personally felt like I just need to hear more of this to actually also relate on my own experience as sort of a mixed kids in Indonesia as well. But yeah, I mean, like we need to talk with the men now. So I'll pass the mic to Indomie Cooper, and I'll add again later. So yeah, here we go.
Okay, thank you so much, Sambal Mata, and thank you for the men for being here. And let's just do like a free flow. So whoever wants to take over and speak or answer or not answer, it's up to you. So my first question for the guys is, what possessed you to date an Indonesian woman? Okay, because as an Indonesian woman myself, I mean, we're a lot and we're extra, and you already know that we're gonna come. If you marry us, you marry our whole family, our community, everything. So why? just an icebreaker.
Good question.
I'm Black and Puerto Rican. That comes with the territory.
Well, elaborate maybe, Diddy.
I'm Black and Puerto Rican. It kind of comes with the territory. Puerto Rican women are exactly like Indonesian women. Like, so there's no real difference there. You marry a Puerto Rican woman, you got the whole family. So it wasn't really about specifically dating an Indonesian woman. It was just about dating a woman that would understand what it is that I needed, you know, what my children needed, and that we'd be on the same page for having a better life. It was important for me to be with someone of color. That wasn't like a preference, but it was definitely something that I wanted someone to understand my struggles a little bit more.
Okay, that's
that
good.
was important.
Yeah, I mean, just to go off that really quickly, because so many times Asian and Black communities I feel like they're not as together as maybe like Black and Hispanic or something like that. I feel like Asians, and that plays a part of the whole model minority thing that they impose on us. So I feel like we're not as close. So you don't see interracial relationships happening as much with Asian and Black community as, you know, Black or Hispanic. I'm just saying my thoughts. So that's good that, you know, you were just following what you needed and you found that in Mak Spesial. Anybody else?
Well, this is Miles. I would say I actually started dating Djanggo by accident. More so saying I didn't know she was Indonesian when I met her. She was just a really, really special person. And it wasn't until after we started getting to know each other and we started dating, I realized part of what made her special is the fact that she's Indonesian, her culture, her family, and everything that goes along with that. I would say culturally, it's culturally just dating an Indonesian woman is just one thing that's very big is family, and that's something I am actually very big on, and my family's actually very big on. So culturally, we're very similar. I'd say.
I'm also gonna say one thing. On our first official date,
oh gosh,
I caught him. On our first official date, he picked me up. I went into the car. He and then he quickly like locked his phone, and then he bragged about how he knew where Indonesia was. But that's because he literally checked. He Googled to check where Indonesia is located on the map right before I got into that car. So yes, you definitely did not know.
I knew the general region of Indonesia.
Yeah, somewhere in Asia, right.
Nice.
And
okay, how about Giring and oxtail?
Hey, what's up, guys? I mean, really, for me, I did, coming from the Bronx, my martial arts studio was downtown in Chinatown, and meeting Maria for the first time, I actually really just had no information on Indonesian culture. So the first time I actually met her, it was really literally just into what, and then as she explained more and more, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I think the biggest thing about her was that she was so chill and so composed and content compared to who I would usually be around or who I would usually date. So going on this different path is like, let me know more, because you're not driving me crazy. Two, you have a very caring attitude towards everything and everything around you. So let me know more. Let me become even more interested in the situation.
Did you change your mind now?
Huh?
Have you changed your mind?
I've had second thoughts, but I'm still good to go.
Oh,
hey, reminder not to say names, by the way. Use our Indo Me name, but I can cut those out.
Okay. Okay. Second question is, what was it like to meet the family? I want to hear from your side. And is it a typical, like, you know, oh, I'm scared to meet her family, like, you know, because I mean that's any situation, but does it play an extra factor that you're of a different race than, you know, who you're trying to go for? So let me hear your answers.
You want to go first?
I can go first. Meeting the family was awesome, actually. It was welcome arms. I had a little bit of challenges with the sister, and I think that was just mainly not a race thing, but just a personality thing. I didn't really, because of the fact that we're very close in age. I think she wanted me to treat her as though she was an elder, or, you know, more mature than me, and we're only about a year or two apart, and I'm like, you're my peer, you're not my elder. So I mean, I guess I didn't understand that culturally. That's something that's important. But I didn't understand that at first, because if you're within a few years of each other, you should, you know, you're pretty much a peer. But if when you're within a few years, and at least in the Indonesia culture, you know, it's important to give that respect to someone. So that kind of bugged me a little bit at the beginning. But other than that, I mean, the family was great. I mean, I think they were even more excited when I came to visit. Probably walked around like a monument, you know, because everybody seemed like they wanted to climb the Statue of Liberty, you know, when I was there. So it was kind of interesting. It was fun. So concerned about me every minute. Like, am I okay? You know, do you need anything? I mean, so attentive. And I mean, I was just taking everything in, and I loved it. So there was no issues there, but it just the whole respect thing, you know, with the sister was the only problem that I had.
Okay. Well, that's very good. Lucky you. And yeah, Indos are very big on rank, like on respect and everything. It's, you know. Anyway, that's another topic. So let's go to Giring or Djanggo. Your guys.
So for me, it was the first time I met Djanggo's parents was via Skype, and kind of I guess this is maybe more of an international thing. WhatsApp. I actually got added to the family WhatsApp group during the time we were dating. So I was calling my father-in-law Aya and my mother-in-law Bunda, even when we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. So family was just very welcoming to me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if again, like Djanggo said, I don't think race was ever really a factor as far as her family. Is more so the fact that I'm American, you know. So basically, with her being in a relationship with me, if things got serious in her family's mind, that basically meant that she was going to be living in another part of the world. More so than, I think that was the biggest factor as far as our relationship, biggest focus. And also, I guess, would I be willing to move to Indonesia at some point? I guess so. Again, it wasn't really more. I don't, with her family. It was just more. I guess that was more the focus than anything.
Okay, that's good.
Hey,
and Oxtail. Or who else?
No, I was gonna say Miles. I didn't get added to the family WhatsApp group until after we got married. So you lucky. They made sure of that.
You gotta wonder what they were saying about you all that time.
I'm in the chat group now, but hardly anything's in English, so I can't do it.
Actually true in our case, yeah. That's actually true in our case even today, so yeah.
I guess for Giring and myself,
It was just a matter of more caution. Kind of had to like show my stuff to each of the family members. Again, it's that little thing where it's like, hey, is this guy gonna run away? Is he the kind of guy you see from cops? He gets in trouble, gets arrested, and I just really had to show them, say, hey, I'm not really that kind of a party guy. I'm more of a businessman and more than anything else, and I'm here to work, get it done, and go. So my first instance with her father was when we were moving some stuff out of the apartment, and I kind of hustled that day. So one of the first phrases he said in English was, "Oh, very strong, good." And I was like, at least we can make a bridge off of something. Is if you ask me to do something, I'll hustle for you. And to prove that, I know that in her dad's past that he was a very hard worker. So if I showed the same kind of like machismo, at least we'll start be able to make a bridge and start to communicate better.
I'm glad you guys have had such a, I'd say that's pretty smooth first impressions and acceptance. That sounds really good. Happy for you guys. So my next question is, what is the extent of your familiarity with the Indonesian community? Are you active in it, or do you choose to stay out of it? Have you been to Indonesia?
I love the Indonesian community. I mean, there's a lot of people that I don't know that probably have a negative impact on the community in the first place. So I really wouldn't be dealing with them. But the ones that are active in the community that I do know, I love them. They're like a part of my family. If they need anything, I'm more than willing to help them with it. And if we need anything, they're more than willing to help us with it.
Well, you're active in the community too. You
Right.
actually get involved in my community activities. That's
Right.
why too. Yeah.
So I get involved in the activities of my wife, as well as I have my own business that I supply to the Indonesian community as well, which worked out well because in some cases they don't know who to go to, who to trust, and because we're familiar faces, it's easy for us to be able to do business and do it, at great prices. And going to Indonesia, I've been there two times
yeah.
already, and I absolutely love it.
And you
I definitely want to live there.
Oh,
And it's a beautiful place to visit. I mean, I don't know if I would be there like solely all the time, but I definitely would want to be one of those people that lives there a couple of months out of the year, then back to the States, and a couple of months there and back to the States, so forth. But I love Indonesia. It's an awesome place. Beautiful.
oh, that's so good. Okay, Miles.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as being involved in Indonesian culture, I'd say very much so. Specifically, Manadonese, which is a lot about the food. That's a big deal with the Manadonese culture, and I really love just experiencing it. I love the food. Well, sometimes we'll go on road trips just to go to another city that might have an Indonesian restaurant. I've been to Indonesia a few times here, a couple times here, mostly Jakarta and Bali, but also have been to Bandung, just a few other places. The culture is it's a very rich culture, and one thing that I really one of the things I really appreciate about Indonesian culture is it's a plural. You know what I'm trying to say.
It's a plural society?
Yeah, it's a plural society. They just have so many different ethnic groups. All the different, they have so many ethnic groups, and each of the ethnic groups have their own culture. Specifically, just one area I think about is Bali. Just how the people there, Java.
No, well, Bali's Bali.
Oh, I'm sorry, Balinese. The Balinese, the Balinese, just how they are, how welcoming they are. It's just part of the culture there, and just seeing the different clothings and the different rituals and the temples. It's just so much. So Indonesian culture is just so rich.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and Oxtail.
I guess I'm not too. I would say not too thrown into the Indonesian culture, but Giring has shown me more of the media side in terms of the shows and different types of martial arts, like pencak and we kind of piece together the different things. Like for example, there was a action movie called Marantau. Sorry, Marantau. I'm learning. And that same guy was also the action star for The Raid, and he was also in Star Wars. So how deep that the Asian culture, the Indonesian culture goes into the American culture in terms of film and TV and television and action heroes and stuff like that. And then you start to branch off into things like The Tonight Show. So even though I'm probably understanding maybe 5% of the language.
Tonight Show by Desta and Vincent, if you guys know. Hello? Do you know the Tonight Show in Indonesia, the Vincent and Desta?
What is
I
it
think
called? Yeah. Which one is that?
Yeah. He likes to watch that.
So we'll watch that. Even though I only know maybe 10% of the language, 5% of the language, I'll just start to learn and piece together more from there. But you know, we all live on the same planet, and even though we share different cultures, it's a beautiful thing to start to learn, understand, kind of start over, as kind of like a rookie learning into something new. And pretty much for most of the community, I've been accepted. But even though Giring will also show me things on social media and posts of the attitude of some Indonesians learning our culture as well, and the idiosyncrasies they may have, or even just them being afraid of certain situations like the Black Lives Matter movement or interracial cultures and the fears and the different things that they go through when encountering these things for the first time. So it's sometimes she'll have me in the Facebook post or the social media post more as an interpreter, some way the person that can explain, hey, maybe this is a different method of thinking about that certain point of view that you have from my point of view, and why it may be wrong or right or different.
Yeah, that's comforting to see that none of this any kind of backlash or whatever will dissuade you and you know, prevent you from getting closer. You know, there's so many people who marry into Indonesians, but then they don't take the initiative, the time, or have any care to learn the language, learn the culture, or anything, to try to understand why they have these kind of biases or beliefs or anything. So kudos to all you guys for really trying to know where your wife's people come from and everything. I think that's truly amazing to see. And I hope that everybody in every marriage, no matter the culture, we have to learn about each other, you know, especially if you're gonna be that intimate, you know. So that's awesome.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
With regards to, just to hop on what Axel was saying. In being born here as an American and being both Black and Puerto Rican, when you live in the U.S., for some reason, we become saturated. We just become Americans. And throughout the years, year after year after year after year, you become so saturated that you almost don't have culture unless your family absolutely preserved it. So with my family on the Puerto Rican side, there was nothing that I could draw onto that could teach me anything about my culture as well as being Black, other than what I learned in history books in terms of, you know, who came before me, so forth. But those aren't really my relatives. Those aren't really, they're my people, but they don't encompass who I am as a person. So when I met my wife, it was a matter of seeing her culture, how it is preserved, and being able to learn from it from the beginning as though it was my own. And that's what drew me to her. That's what created this bond, because I felt as though I belonged to something again, and that was important to me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so profound, and I'm glad that you could find some kind of comfort even from our culture. So you guys are amazing. My other question is, how are the microaggressions or the racism experienced from Indonesians similar or different to those that you've experienced from white people? Are they different or similar?
I don't understand the question.
We're going with Didi first.
Can you repeat that or rephrase it?
Oh, sure. Like I guess you've all been so lucky that as far as family side and everything, and your immediate Indonesian communities, you haven't faced so much of the racism towards you. But I was wondering, is there a difference between the racism you face from Indonesians than the one you'd face from white people? Is that any clearer?
Yeah, it would be drastically different. And I think, if anything, here's the thing: from a white person, if someone is being prejudiced against me, it is merely because of the fact that they've been taught this. And they have seen this, and they also know what their privileges are in order to be able to exercise exactly how they feel. Now, with an Indonesian person, it's the complete opposite. It's the lack of education. It's the not understanding. It's not knowing what the privilege is, but knowing that when you come here to the US, you do have a privilege that you kind of understand that is different from that of Black people. So because of that, I believe that the racism, I can't say it can be forgiven, but I think in terms of being able to reach someone and explain to them how things are, could be the case. But you do have people who are just set in their mind about what they want to believe or what they want to feel. It's different where you're educated about how to be racist, as opposed to not understanding, not having an education, but having a prejudice.
Right. I see that. I mean, yeah, because with the racism with whites, I mean, that's ingrained in society, because that's what it's built on, you know. So yeah, I understand. And Indonesians coming here, they have no idea of any of that. They're just going based off, you know, what movies tell them or whatever. So I guess it's not as maybe not as in your face as white people.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like within the last 2 weeks, I think you faced racism from the Indonesian community. Like, I mean, maybe more on social media, not like you said, Cooper, is not really in your face, not face to face, but.
But I think it was more of an understanding in the sense that it was that whole thing is Black Lives Matters, all lives matter, and I think it kept pressing, well, all lives matter, but you know, they didn't get why they were saying all lives matter, because it was about the fact that Black Lives Matter because it's the one race in which we have constantly been oppressed by this country for hundreds of years. So when you say all lives matter, you're just ignoring the fact that we're not saying that we're the most important people. We're saying that we're important because we're the ones that continue to be killed. So when I hear the all lives matter, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to what we're trying to say, because it's not like it's Indonesian men that are being put down in chokeholds and being killed left and right. I mean, you have the ability to walk the streets completely safe. So when you say all lives matter, you're basically saying that Black lives do not matter at all.
Right.
Yeah. I think what I feel like right now, a lot of Indonesians are showing their true faces, and also they're saying like, what can just all lives matter? And then when we try to explain it over and over again why, and then they just don't care. They, like, at this point, if they still choose to be racist, to be prejudiced, they just don't care. It's not like that they don't want to learn or anything like that. Just they don't care.
I mean, I still believe that there are situations where someone hasn't encountered a situation or a event like racism, and the better way for them to understand it is to eventually. And I'm not saying it's the best way, but for some people, it may work better if they see the situation firsthand, like a hands-on experience, so they can understand it. Because in my life, I've lived in Virginia, I've lived in the South, I've lived in Mexico, and some people, there have been situations where they've never seen a person of color or another or a black individual. There was one time when I was in Mexico, and you would have kids bring up coins to one of my friends who was from Ghana, and they would say negro, 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 because it was literally the first time of these kids in this small village, 700 miles into the country, where they've never seen a person other than their own skin tone. So sometimes you have those situations where racism or prejudice where they've literally never seen them. And I think that would be the best time to educate them. And if at that point where they're not willing to listen, that's where it becomes full blown. That's where you are absolutely 100% wrong.
Right. Absolutely. How about Miles?
I feel like a lot. I feel like everything that was said is really on point. I'm not sure if there is much more.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What was already said.
Yeah. So any thoughts that you want to impart on the Indonesian community that you want them to understand, the community here and also back home in Indonesia? What do you want them to take away from the movement, from everything, from you, everything?
I would say, ask questions. Don't make a judgment on a situation just based off of your initial reaction, because that may be wrong. Some people might see a video, or why did that person resist, or why was that person so upset at the police officer? You have to ask questions why. Why is this police officer acting a certain way, or why is this situation? Why are these people getting rowdy and upset and angry? There could be a reason behind or a method to the madness. For example, you would have some people talk about the rioting. Why are they rioting? Well, this is why. And this has been happening for 50 years for this generation, another 50 years for the previous generation, and then 300 to 400 years of slavery. That's why it escalates to this point. Where everyone is open to conversation, and we're happy to explain exactly why. But step forward, ask questions before you make a judgment on any culture, whether it be Indonesian culture, Black culture, or even just the political movements for it. We'll be more than happy to explain.
I can totally agree with that, because I mean, even being Black myself, sometimes you look at certain situations and you look at what's going on, you're asking yourself why, but then at the same time, we already know why. But for someone on the outside looking in, they can't really understand, why are you acting that way? Why are you upset? The thing is that, and what most people don't understand is that you are given the benefit of the doubt if you're any color except Black. Whereas most people are innocent until proven guilty, but in most situations, depending on what the incident may be, it's usually you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And that's the way society looks at Black people, Black men, just in general. And it's totally unfair, because we have to explain why when we shouldn't have to. Right. Those conversations that we have to tell ourselves how to behave in a situation when we know that there's nothing we've done wrong. But then someone looks at the situation and was like, well, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do? Well, if you were in that same situation, would you have to explain? And that's the problem.
Yeah. Your humanity is always challenged. And I wish Indonesians would do the research and like things like this, the debates of Black Lives Matter. I don't even know why is it a debate, even just on the basis of humanity. Just like why do we have to question if somebody's championing for their own rights, advocating for their own rights? It's I don't know. It's a lot, but yeah. Miles?
I would say also just I understand that Indonesians in Indonesia, they're gonna have limited exposure to to Black people, African Americans. So just as far as whatever media sources you have, just make sure they're diverse, you know, so you're not only just seeing, you know, they may see Black people can be portrayed, especially in America, can be portrayed as entertainers or criminals, right? Mm-hmm. So try to be diverse in just the media you consume, networks. I have a really good friend in Indonesia, and he hit me up during the riot, while the rioting was going on, and he had a number of questions. And realized that this guy watches a lot of Fox News. So that shaped the questions that he asked. And I told him, hey, look, you might want to check out a few other media sources rather than just going to this one source. And I think that's one of the challenges that when you're international or, you know, you get the media that is you consume whatever media is available to you. So I would just suggest get as much different forms of media interaction as you can that's available to you. And also there in Indonesia, you do have Black people there. You do have Black Americans there. And if you have the opportunity to interact with one, you know, that should be an opportunity. You should take that opportunity to either introduce yourself or get to know them. I'm not saying you need to run up on every Black person you meet, but if you have the opportunity and you see where you're constantly interacting with somebody, maybe you're a business owner and you have a customer who's Black that comes by from time to time. Maybe you want to get to know them. I'm just a big fan of getting to know people who aren't like you, so you can just get a better understanding. But I think that's one of the things that you can do. I know it's challenging. I know I knew very little about Indonesia myself before I met my wife. So I can't necessarily expect people on the other side of the world to know everything or know a great deal about me. So I would just recommend getting as much exposure as you can. Don't be shy.
Yeah. Cooper, can I say something to this?
Of course.
I just want to say this is for especially for Indonesians. If you're listening to this, we have a saying in Indonesia, right? Tak kenal maka tak sayang, right? So if you translate that to English, is to know is to love. So you know, as we are inviting you all to educate yourself, and like all of this Black men were saying, that like you know. Do your own research, you know, educate yourself and read more, read the news and read not just the one side of the story. Maybe there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. So also specifically, I'll speak to like my own communities, my own Indonesian community surrounding me. Many are saying this and that about the Black community, but they're themselves are actually afraid to extend their hand and get to know the other communities. They're basically just want to stay within the the Indonesian community, not even want to talk to other immigrant communities where they live. So you know, you are living in a country that is not your own country, right? So why are you so afraid to get to know others? I mean, if you start opening yourself up, I think other people will do the same. There's always going to be bad people, no matter what their background or their race, their color, their religion. So I think we all should learn. Like I myself still learning. So I want to invite everybody to get to know other communities, get to know other people who don't look like us. That's all I'm going to say.
Can I add a little bit?
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really really good to hear from the guys, really. And while hearing you guys, I could really, I mean, I personally, I could really relate what's happening. And what's going on in my head was, okay, so basically the modern Indonesian culture are very Americanized. Like in the 90s, we grow up with MTV and everything, and we love everything American. So I think, in a way, how this, parts of this ignorant thing, is really about, because some of the Indonesian, they just, um, take all this information just straight away. And then, because in the political levels, in the international political levels, Indonesian and the States has really good relations in terms of trade, in terms of culture and everything. So it looks like even the government policies, has given us like warnings not to, like, don't join the riots, like it's on the BLM thing. It's really because, like, Indonesian, in terms of these political things, in a macro level, it's really, they don't want to damage the relationship. So, and somehow that attitude, I think it does affect parts of the Indonesian society in the States who's living in their bubbles. But that's the thing about what Mak Spesial said. Like, there's always bigotry, there's always ignorant people in every race. So what we're learning here together is really educating ourselves. And what I could really relate about the Indonesian history, especially in Java, the context of Java, is because we experienced, colonialism for 350 years during the Dutch. And that was just basically total slavery. That was basically, forced labor. A lot of people died, just built railroads and everything. They send them in ships to Suriname and everything. So we actually could really relate to what you guys experience if we want to know our own history. That's sort of the problem, I think, when, not I agree that not many, people can access good educations here. So, and also, like, even people who are educated, they don't really care about reading these materials. So it is really about, I think, especially like Indonesian, here we live in Indonesia is quite famous for, hoax, like, fake news. So they are still really learning about all this information they got from the internet, the WhatsApp group, families especially. And that is the process of our learning, I think. So, but yeah, I mean, like, really, we actually, I think Indonesian as a very actually plural societies, which has like similar background, not exactly, but like actually we could relate it to that experience if we want to see it in that context. So that is my perspective. And it's just, yeah, I mean, like, I think that will be a good point to actually also reflect for us, especially hearing the personal experience. I really feel like all these stories need to be out more, in a lot of media, and different media, and especially for the younger kids, the older generation, they will need to change their attitude and willing to learn. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Giring, I think you have something to say. Oh, hello.
Right here. Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh.
I would just say that, maybe start like what Didi or Miles said, to start diverse yourself, have expose yourself to another cultures. Or if you live in a big city, go to the area that are not majority people that looks like you or white, you know. So it's like, you know, try a little, maybe if for Indonesian, if you know, maybe you can try to eat something that you like from another cultures, like go to a Spanish restaurant or a Caribbean restaurant. They have a very good jerk chicken. I think a lot of Indonesian will love jerk chicken. You know, from there, that you know, you started exposing yourself to another culture through something that you like, to something that you're passionate about. And then maybe from there also you started having discussion, because when you go to another restaurant, you will see another cultures, you will see another people, you will hear another conversations, you will see another experience that they go through everyday life. You might think it's the same. It's not, because you know, no matter how hard I will think that, you know, me and my husband think, you know, we're the same, we're one human, one race, we're different. My husband and I are different. We're from different cultures, we're from different backgrounds. But, you know, I will also say that, you know, when you expose yourself, you're going to learn how to embrace the differences. So maybe, you know, first step is just expose yourself to something that you like about to another cultures. So yeah.
Yeah. I agree with all these points, and especially with what Miles was saying. You know, try to get two sides of the story. I feel like with this Black Lives Matter movement, you know, if Indonesians are so, if you don't have anything to say, you know, you might as well not say anything. Like the all lives matter rebuttal for that, I don't understand why any other American news, they wouldn't pick up on it or care about it. But if it's something for Black people, they have to challenge it. And one of the ways that they're able to do that is they're getting the dissenting voices like Candace Owens. She's going around, so they're using her argument to like weaponize her voice against the whole Black Lives Matter movement. So I implore all the Indonesians, especially back home and everything, to look at the majority voice, look at Angela Davis, look at Malcolm X, like all the more prominent and more educated and more political voices than somebody like her. So that's just my piece, and I want to go ahead and get back to the couples and any last words and what are your hopes for the future as, you know, being an interracial couple, and what would you like to see for the future? I'll start with Mak Spesial and Didi.
Did you hear that?
No.
Can you say that again?
Oh, what are your hopes for the future? You know, as in an interracial couple, what would you like to see?
It's funny because I don't really see us as an interracial couple. But what I would like to see is that I've been very surprised and pleased with how the young people of our generation has taken up the mantle and have taken this fight from our hands and pushed it to further limits. And I'm proud of what my children have done. And what I see children from all over the world. There was an incredibly intelligent woman that was spoken to yesterday by my wife that I was like, wow, you know, this world is going to be in good hands. These young people have great minds on their shoulder. As long as there's enough of them around, I believe I can go to rest in peace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have hope in these young people that they're a little bit more open-minded and a little bit more accepting, and they want to educate themselves. They want to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the world. So I think we're older. we're not as young anymore, so we're probably not going to be protesting on the street all the time. We'll fight the way, we'll fight the best that we know how, maybe from just educating friends and things like that. But I think the younger generation, especially the Generation Z, is really our hope. I'm sure there's going to be like Generation Z who have been brainwashed from their parents or their upbringing or whatever, but I think we have hope in this, and I really hope that we'll see a little bit more of inclusivity with our future generation.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Okay, Djanggo and Miles.
Yeah, for me, I guess my hope is just not just us as an interracial couple, but just like we want to have children and just hoping for a better future, a future that doesn't have, where they don't have to deal with some of these challenges. I saw something on social media a couple weeks back that really struck me. It was a guy, he said he basically was saying he's having to have a conversation with his 6-year-old daughter about George Floyd. And he said his son is 12 years old now, whose 12-year-old son, he had to have a conversation with him when his 12-year-old son was 6 about Trayvon Martin. He said when he was around 12 years old, his mother had to have a conversation with him about Rodney King. And when his mother was a child, her parents had to have a conversation with her about Emmett Till. And I'm not sure if somebody who's not Indonesian is listening knows all those names, but like that really struck me because I was the Rodney King. That when I was a kid, that was like my first exposure to seeing a video of a black man just being beaten brutally in my lifetime. That wasn't something that was from the 60s or civil rights movement. And it's just been going on ever since. And so I just hope for the future that that's something that our children don't have to experience, don't have to see, and not just see it, but it being normalized as it has been over decades, over centuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I feel like for me, it would be, my hope is that I think more about from the Indonesian side. My hope is just like what Diddy mentioned earlier, is, the next generation. I feel like for our generation and the generations before us, the Indonesians, I mean, there's a lot of focus on just things that impact them. There's certainly empathy, but I guess for us or them, the empathy is kind of limited to people who they see on a regular basis, and nothing beyond that. I think social media and just watching just news media helps to sort of like see what else is going on abroad. But I think it's harder for them to sort of relate, But when I see, the woman that Diddy was referring to, I feel like social media does help, because I feel like this next generation, they are able to see what's going on abroad, and it's very accessible. And so, yes, it comes with a lot of negative, there are definitely negative, I guess, side effects to that, as we all know. But the positive side of it is, I think it makes them sort of like a global citizen. It's not enough to just care about the people who are within your proximity, but to them, they carry this burden to sort of care about people who live, on the other side of the world. And I think that is important, just the way we're seeing the Black Lives Matter movement now. We see protests happening all around the world, and it makes the voice stronger and louder. It makes it much more impactful. So I think seeing how these kids who may have never met, somebody who's Black, Black American or of different race, but for whatever reason, they're able to sort of build this empathy. And I think and I, for me, that's where I find my hope in. I think that's really something that I'm excited about. And so I hope there's definitely more of that in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Giring and Oxtail.
Yeah, my hope will be I just want my children to be proud of 100% Indonesian, 100% Puerto Rican, and 100% African American, because I want them to see that, they can be all of that without losing her identity, because those three are her identity.
Mm-hmm.
I also want her to be accepted in all the cultures that she's from, because it's kind of hard that when I will speak to her about the police brutality, or how Indonesian treated the black people or the Spanish people, it will make her, I know that for sure, that it will make her question her identity or have a second thought of of her cultures. So I hope that she will be accepted. I hope that she will also accept those three cultures as hers, as the whole identity that she is from, that she is made of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of personal also, that I just want her to be proud of herself, and I want the Indonesian community to have more open-minded with multiracials, and
Mm-hmm.
also other community or other races, that they're not so different than us, even though they are different in many ways, but they're not so different than us, because no matter what, at the end of the world, you'll be judged by the God that you believe in, or you'll be, or we have the same, like in Indonesia, we have a saying like, darah kita tetap merah and tulang kita tetap putih. So it's like, have more acceptance, have more tolerance, have
Mm-hmm.
more open-minded and empathy toward other people that other than our own race. That Oxtail.
I would say for me is just to make sure our kids can embrace both cultures without remorse. I mean, I would love to take them to the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and on the flip side, I would love to have them learn about the ceremonial dances and different traditions you guys have on the other side. It's all a learning experience. The more you learn, the better you become.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. It's been very eye-opening and so insightful. I'm glad that you guys are treated well in our community. And I hope that anybody listening, if you see a friend bring a black spouse and everything, be there for them, and you know, be the way that we should be towards everyone. Just show everybody your best face. We went long.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
long.
and it's fine. I think sometimes like what needs to be said, right? So